Okay, am I live? Somebody let me know because I'm not sure. Just had a little bit of problem, but hopefully not any longer. Welcome to New Year's Eve 2022/2023. How is everybody? If you can hear me. Hello. Okay, middle-aged kid girl says it's all good from her end, and I will believe her. So yeah, starting out need a drink. Okay. We just had a weird experience. We went out to bring Luna in. Hi everybody, hi Lee, hi everybody. So we went out to bring Luna in from the backyard, and we went out right down the back where we got these fragrant plants, these shrubs and things, and they're each about the size of a Volkswagen Bug. And so we went out, and Luna's behind the rose bushes, near all the fragrant shrubs. And the middle-aged good girl says to me, "Take a look over here where I'm pointing the light." Now the light she's pointing is about this wide, so it's a bit hard to tell where she was pointing. 3 Australian possums sitting up amongst all the branches, and we've never had possums around here. And Luna's down the bottom trying to get up at the possums, and the possums are up the top, not giving a shit about Luna. We eventually got her in, but we didn't know we had possums around here because we're not in a particularly tree-friendly area. But really weird thing to see these possums, and they're only about a meter away from me. They're not far away at all. And they're just not giving a shit about human beings and just getting on with their own stuff. So that was kind of interesting. And I will take some photos, and I'll show some photos on the channel, I think, next time I see them. Because yeah, a bit weird. Our garden is a jungle. I think they were babies. They weren't babies. I've seen baby possums, and they're much smaller than that. They were kind of young adult possums because they're about that big, maybe. And then they got the tail on them. So they're like the size of small cats. And yeah, that was a surprise. It just came up unexpectedly. Hope the possums don't get too startled by all the fireworks around here because the fireworks are already started, which is one of the reasons why we got Luna in. But anyway, welcome to the show. Let me play a little bit of intro music for you. Tell me if this comes through, middle-aged good girl.
Listen to the rain on the roof go pick, pitty pat, pick, pitty pat, pitty. Sit, kitty cat, we won't get home for hours.
That one comes through. Possums are good eating. Yeah, but we don't eat them here particularly. But yeah, we've got so many other things. Kangaroos are good eating. Kangaroos are fantastic eating. Really lean red meat, slightly gamey, but not very much. But kangaroo is a meat that I really like. So I've got a lot of things on for tonight. New Year's Eve here. I've got the TV over there showing me Sydney Harbour. I'm going to see the fireworks when it all starts up. Out of the corner of my eye, I'm talking to you guys. Yeah, so it's kind of been there's a weird liminal space between Christmas and New Year. That week in between, nobody knows what the hell to do. So what I've been doing is Darren Bennett says, "I love my country's delicious, delicious fauna." Yeah, absolutely. But what I've been doing in that kind of liminal section between Christmas and New Year is I've got a lot of videos. I did that in memoriam for all of the movie people who died in 2022. That takes a hell of a lot of work. Just going through Wikipedia and finding out who died and then finding the pictures and coordinating it all. A lot of work, but I like doing it every year. And one year it went viral. One year I got 250,000 views out of it. So I keep hoping that lightning will strike twice on that. But yeah, it's good to acknowledge the people who have died during the year. A lot of people. People say it's more than usual, but it's not really. Last year and the year before, we got a lot more because we had COVID, and we also had COVID without vaccines. So a lot of people like Sonny Chiba died, and David Prowse, who played Darth Vader, died because they weren't able to get vaccines for COVID. So yeah, the in memoriam is a weird one to do, but I like doing it. I like recognizing the work and the careers of a whole bunch of people. January seems very busy for Mr. Death, says middle-aged good girl. Yeah, 2/3 of the cast of The Quiet Earth are gone now. Yeah, Bruno Lawrence, who was a bit problematic. Remember, he was supposed to be at a convention I was at in New Zealand, and he bowed out of it because his late mother had died. And then people kind of looked it up and found out his mother had died a couple of years before. So, not a particularly honest person, but a very good actor. So, yeah, first thing I've got for you, got to get this show on the road and stop waffling. Why is it every time I start, my throat goes funny? I think that I'm allergic to this microphone. New Year's Eve movies. Hi, Inanimate Carbon God. Yeah, New Year's Eve movies. There was a time when I used to go to New Year's Eve parties with the same group of friends for years. Down in Canberra, they had a whole bunch of friends who'd throw 2 parties a year that went 5 days long. One was in the middle of winter, in the middle of the year. The other one was New Year's Eve, and the New Year's Eve parties were monumental. I've never seen anything like it. And Big Rat Killer says, "No, I came for the waffling." Don't worry, there's going to be more waffling, mate. Thank you, middle-aged giggle. But anyway, so New Year's Eve. Yeah, New Year's Eve was big and enormous parties. People really bonded together, usually about 50 or 60 people, and people would wander in and out of them all the time. But we used to watch, Strange Days was a New Year's Eve party, Lee, and you can add that one to the list. But the first one I've got for you is one of the ultimate New Year's Eve movies, The Poseidon Adventure. Gene Hackman, Stella Stevens, Ernest Borgnine, Shelley Winters, Red Buttons, Roddy McDowell. Who else is there? Jack Albertson, Pamela Sue Martin, Arthur O'Connell. The ultimate disaster movie and also the ultimate New Year's Eve movie. Yeah, it's really weird because Leslie Nielsen played the captain of the ship that gets overturned by the tsunami, which for some reason is in the Mediterranean, which is not an area known for tsunamis. But yep, there's got to be a morning after middle-aged Google. I want to rewatch that one. Irwin Allen was never a wonderful filmmaker, but he did know how to do spectaculars. And this is definitely one of those. I remember this was at the Plaza Theatre in Sydney for a hell of a long time. And people would go and see it repeatedly. It was like Avatar is now for some people. But yeah, The Poseidon Adventure, definitely a New Year's Eve movie. Didn't watch any movies this New Year's Eve for some reason. I got some sleep and then I did some other things. And I got a lot of things organized for this. But that's the first one. I've got 4 of them. And we can also add Strange Days. So thank you for that, Lee. So yeah, first one is Poseidon Adventure. Ignore all the remakes of Poseidon Adventure because they were shit. They really didn't have that magic that came from Gene Hackman doing A grade acting in a B grade kind of level movie. But that's the first one. Yeah, Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, which had Michael Caine in it. But these movies just have a New Year's Eve feel for me. Some of them aren't exactly New Year's Eve movies, but some of them are kind of. This one isn't, but I feel like it should be shown at New Year's Eve. Barbarella, Jane Fonda. Fantastically weird movie. It's got directed by Roger Vadim and a bunch of other people, come to think of it. John Philip Law, Marcel Marceau. Keith, yep, greetings from Yorkshire. One side of my family's from Yorkshire too. My great-grandfather owned a pub in York. But yes, Barbarella, it's just a lot of fun to watch. It's a lot of fun to watch on the biggest screen you can possibly watch it on. Jane Fonda at her most sumptuous, though you could argue that Sunday in New York, she was cuter in that. But yeah, it's got that kind of weird pan-European feel about it in the same way that the 1967 Casino Royale does. But yeah, for me, that feels like a movie that you'd show on New Year's Eve. Not sure exactly why, but I might revisit that too in the new year, which starts in 49 minutes. Not the pub in York that keeps getting flat. I don't know, but I would have inherited. So I'm pissed off that they sold it before I was born, and when my grandfather was like in the 1920s. So I'm not too happy about that one. Could have made a bloody fortune. But anyway, third movie for New Year's Eve. Now, this again feels like a New Year's Eve movie, even though it isn't specifically a New Year's Eve movie. Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise, which, if you haven't seen it, is fantastic. If you have seen it, it's still fantastic to rewatch. Let's have a look here. Hey, I've got a booklet in there about it too. That's kind of cool. But anyway, yeah, Phantom of the Paradise, Brian De Palma, retelling of Phantom of the Opera and Faust at the same time. Fantastic music as well. I love the soundtrack on this, which Paul Williams wrote, as well as playing the character of Swan in it. Lee says, York is one of my favorite places. I've never been there, unfortunately. We did go to the UK in 2004, but we kind of crept up the other side of the coastline. And I wanted to go and see the statue of Eric Morecambe at Morecambe, so we did that instead. But yeah, Phantom of the Paradise feels like a New Year's Eve movie. And I'm going to have to rewatch that one too. A few of these movies I'm just going to put aside to rewatch. Comfort films in a lot of ways. And yeah, it does feel like a New Year's Eve party. A New Year's Eve movie, sorry. Then we got to go to the GOAT, the greatest of all time New Year's Eve movies. Alan Arkush's Get Crazy. Now, if you haven't seen this one, you should. If you have seen it, you'll know what I mean. This was always played at those New Year's Eve parties in Canberra. We had it on VHS because Roadshow put out a VHS of it here in Australia, which is now worth a lot of money for no good reason because VHS isn't great quality. But they finally got out a Blu-ray of it last year. For Kino Lorber put it out. If you haven't seen this one, it's great. It's got Malcolm McDowell, Alan Gorwitz, Daniel Stern, Gail Edwards, Miles Chapin. It's also got Lou Reed. Yeah. And Anna McCarthy. Never heard of Get Crazy. You got to watch this. It is great. Malcolm McDowell plays a rock and roll star who's a little bit Mick Jaggery, and the character's name is Reggie Wanker. You just got to see this. Malcolm McDowell singing and dancing. It's surrealistic at times. It's a love letter to the Fillmore East concert venue where Alan Arkush worked as a young man. Tons and tons of extras. Interviews with the cast. Fantastic thing there. Middle-aged geek girl says the girls are going nuts in here with me. Is that because of the fireworks? I can't hear them because I've got the phones on. But yeah, Reggie Wanker is the character that Malcolm McDowell plays in that movie. It's great. So yeah, 4 really great movies that are good for New Year's Eve. They are playing. The girls are playing out in the front room where middle-aged geek girl is, because they don't want to come in and play with me. If Luna turns up, I'll get her on screen, but there's no guarantees when it comes to cats. Lee Lavery, you can make Philip Larkin at the train station a statue, and the Laurel Hardy Museum in Ulverston, not far from Morecambe. Yeah, we kind of rushed through there because we wanted to go to Loch Ness, and we had a car, if I remember right, it was a Ford Mondeo that we hired, and drove all around. We went all the way from Cornwall up to Inverness and along Loch Ness and all sorts of places, Fort William, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so they're my 4 movies for New Year's Eve that I'd probably be watching if I wasn't doing this. But what's the weather like where everybody is? It's kind of warm here. It was a Holden by the UK version, says middle-aged Google. Yeah, it could have been. So it's kind of warm here. It's been like 28, 29 degrees centigrade here. What's the weather like where you guys are? I'm waiting for the chat to catch up because it's always a bit slow. I've actually got the air conditioning. I've got a little bit of a breeze blowing here. But yeah, let's have a look. What else have we got? Tons of things. I've got a ton of stuff to hear. Mild and dry in Manchester. Weather's a bit miserable in North Wales. What part of North Wales, Lee? A bit wet here in the UK, but cold snap has gone, says Keith. Yeah, well, global warming is going to fuck things around, isn't it? -10 at this time of year, but it's +15 and sunny. Brisbane showers, occasionally annoying black backyard concerts. Yeah, I was a little bit worried here too because the houses are fairly close together where we are. And there have been New Year's Eve parties at various times in the past, which have been very loud, but we kind of got lucky this year as far as the live stream is concerned because people aren't doing that because with the resurgence in the spicy cough, people are in some places, in some ways, not having as many parties. There are people going to large venues and going to fireworks displays in the city and all that, but we're not getting too much local partying because near Preston. Okay, cool. Pouring with rain in southern England. Well, you guys needed a little bit. You had some floods. Let's see, Intimate Carbon God. 24 in Sydney. Give it time. Our neighbours have guests or customers, says middle-aged good girl. She's got the theory that they're running some kind of illicit business next door because they get a lot of visitors. Middle-aged good girl is kind of becoming very curious about what's going on in the neighbourhood. One of the reasons is the house directly across our street was rented out and then they turned it into a marijuana growing kind of house. They blacked out all the windows, put in a whole bunch of grow lights and got raided by the cops. And the house has been empty and renovated ever since. So, yeah, the sooner we legalize those sort of things, the better. It's going to mean that they get out of suburban houses and back into paddocks where they should be. Just turned 49. You're a Karen. No, you're not. You're not. We're going to resist the urge for you to become a Karen, middle-aged good girl. But yeah, I've got a couple of other movie recommendations. It sounds like a nice. It is a nice neighborhood. It's really multicultural. There's tons of food trucks around. It's a nice neighborhood. We just got lucky with that particular one. In Animate Carbon Gold, we actually had one of the biggest ice labs in Sydney just down the road a few years ago. Yeah, I mean, cottage industries are very big at the moment, aren't they? Yeah, that would remind me of the Christmas story, but I won't tell you that. Got a couple of movie recommendations that I've watched in the last few days that I can't really fit into any one of the other channel videos that I'm doing, so I thought I'd mention them here. This one, let's see, is this multi-region or not? He will take a quick look and find out. Doesn't say, but this one's an imprint one, which is P2. What's P2? Middle-aged geek girls suddenly said P2 on the chat, and I don't know what that means. Give me a moment. Our first one is A Rage to Live, which is one of the imprint ones. This is a really hidden gem movie, which nobody talks about at all. And it's the only movie that actually starred as the main star in the film, Suzanne Plachette. It's got Ben Gazzara in it as well. It's got Bradford Dillman, who plays her husband in it. Whole bunch of character actors. And this one's about a kind of woman whose family is quite rich and who is kind of man crazy in a sense. And this is seen as a negative thing. In a modern context, this character would have just been somebody who had an active personal life. But in this one kind of is incredibly pejorative towards women's sexuality. It's a black and white film, but it is kind of interesting because one of the things it does, and there's the inside cover, which is kind of shows you what it's about. It's really interesting because it's one of those movies that marks how culture has changed since 1964 when this came out. So hidden gem, and because of that kind of gender stereotyping that was part of 1960s culture, it makes it a really interesting movie. Ben Gazzara's character, this is just before he did one of my favorite TV series, Run for Your Life, which I love a lot, and it's never come out on DVD or Blu-ray. But A Race to Live is one of those kind of minor ones that Imprint keeps grabbing out and bringing it to our attention. And it's a kind of recommended drama for me. The other one is the one that middle-aged geek girl kind of foreshadowed for us. If you haven't seen this movie, you got to see it. If you're ever sad or down, you got to watch Paddington 2. Paddington 2 is the happiest movie in the known universe. It will make everybody happy. It will cure everything from cancer to whooping cough. It is just a wonderful, fun film, and it will make you feel good. It's got a really good cast in it too. Let me just have a look here. It's got, yeah, love the bit in the prison. Yeah, right at the end, this is the bit where this is Hugh Grant singing. I actually put this on the start of the video, but I'll play it again.
Listen to the rain on the roof go, pittity pat, pittity pat.
That's Hugh Grant doing a song and dance number at the end of the movie as a really evil actor. It is a hidden gem. People didn't tell me about this. They should have told me about this. But I'd seen it before, and then it came up for like $12 on 4K from a place called, I think it's kicks.com.au, which is going out of business and selling off all of its 4K really cheaply. So I bought that one and showed it to Middle-Aged Geek Girl. Yeah, Brendan Gleeson. Yeah, Brendan Gleeson is fantastic in this. He plays a prison cook called Knuckles McGinty, who everybody in the prison is scared of, except Paddington Bear. And I want to see the Banshees of Inisherin, the new Brendan Gleeson movie he did with Colin Farrell. Hearing really good things about that. You got to see Paddington 2. And the interesting thing too is that the director, and I'll get the director's name because it's important in this context. Paul King directed it and directed the first one of these. Paul King, at the end of 2023, is doing the prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is called Wonka, which has Timothée Chalamet in it. And if there's anybody that can land a Willy Wonka movie well, it's the guy who made this movie. Now, you're going to hear more about the Willy Wonka movie as the year progresses, but I'm kind of quietly confident that this guy is really going to land a Willy Wonka movie. The reason I'm pausing there is, hang on. Here's Luna. She was playing around my feet there. Gonna say hi? No, okay, she wants to get down. But yeah, it looks like, and of course the bots have arrived. We're getting the sex bots turning up on the chat again, and Middle-Aged Geek Girl was totally on top of them. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to this now. There hasn't been a trailer yet of the Wonka movie. It'll probably come out early next year. But I'm quietly optimistic about that, which is kind of interesting because at first thought, a Willy Wonka prequel sounds like a bad idea, and people still have the memory of that hideous Tim Burton one in their minds. But quietly confident after the light and kind of magical touch that Paul King brought to Paddington 2, that the Willy Wonka movie will work. No promises, but it might be worth watching. So we've got some choices now. What have we got? What do you want? I've got some choices for you for the next thing up. Movie reference books that I recommend because I drag them out of the shelves, or my weird movie ashtray collection. I'll leave it up to the chat. I'll keep playing Hugh Grant if you don't.
Listen to the rain on the roof go, pittity pat, pittity pat.
I love that. Okay, Darren and Inanimate Carbon Guide and Lee reference books come after ashtrays. So we'll do the ashtrays first. I've got this weird collection. I will promise I will get to the reference books, guys, but the ashtrays. So I'm going to do both, but which one goes first, Middle-Aged Geek Girl? I've got this weird collection, and it started for no good reason. I'll play the Marabunta sample for you. Hang on a sec. Let's have a look. I just got to go into the right thing, which is sounds. Here we go. We'll play the Marabunta.
Marabunta.
Hey, good morning, David. Thank you for getting up early in Michigan. Must be cold over there. I've got a few other sound samples. I've got the usual one, which is Leslie Nielsen.
Who are you and how did you get in here?
I'm a locksmith. And I'm a locksmith.
And I've got the All About Eve one.
Miss Caswell is an actress, a graduate of the Copacabana School of Dramatic Art.
And I've got the Mel Brooks.
It's good to be the king.
I've got the other Mel Brooks.
You do it for Randolph Scott.
Randolph Scott.
Hey, Striving to Balance. Yep. Alabama and not Birmingham, UK. Okay. Yeah, okay. Ashtrays. Got to stay on track. Got to focus. I've had 5 espressos today, so if I'm a little bit wide, there's probably a pharmaceutical reason for it. So I was watching 2 Weeks in Another Town, which is the sequel to The Bad and Beautiful. And there's a scene where Kirk Douglas and Edward G. Robinson are on the Via Veneto. And I saw an iconic ashtray on the table while they're drinking espressos. And I thought, I wonder if that's available on eBay. It was just one of those random late night thoughts that you have when you kind of, money's burning a hole in your credit card. I found the ashtray, Cinzano ashtray, which is exactly the same as the ashtray in 2 Weeks in Another Town. Now, these kind of glass ashtrays are really famous, and the design was one that was very unusual for the 1960s when they came out. 6:30 a.m. Striving to Balance. Yeah, get that coffee into you, please. I want you to stay awake. But yeah, so that was the first one I got. Now, I was watching a whole bunch of French films, and I don't remember which ones. Hey, Monteval, thank you very much for being part of it. 4 a.m. For fuck's sake, that's early. Yeah, so basically I found a whole bunch of other ones that I saw in movies and then I forgot which movie I saw them in. And so I've got more of these glass ashtrays, and they're all in good condition. They were all sent by people in Europe on eBay. And if anybody wants to send me any of these, I'll collect the buggers now. Yeah, ashtray from your childhood, Striving to Balance. Absolutely. There's also the Martini one. So I've got the Martini and Rossi Martini one. Similar design, but I saw that in a movie. It might have been a French gangster film. So I saw that one, and I thought, I want that as well. And it turned out to be cheap. Postage was a little high because these have got a little bit of weight to them. But yeah, so I got that. And then I saw this one. I think it was in a movie with Catherine Deneuve. Call him Dave Cinzano Bianco. Let's see. Yeah. Beer. I found the beer one, which is almost a flying saucer shape. So I've got that. I've got all these up on shelves, and I'm really going to have to either curtail the habit or find more of them. I'm not sure exactly which, but we'll see how we go. So I've got that one. I've got your classic square Carlsberg one, which I saw in another movie. I'm sure it was a French film, but I don't know which one. I'm going to have to look back in my letterbox list and find what I was watching a few years ago. So I've got that one. And the last one I've got is a round one, and it's the heaviest one of all. And it's La Meuse, which I think is a beer. Yeah, it is. Fine beers. So, yeah, I've got those as a collection for no reason. I don't smoke. I don't smoke anything. But, yeah, I got those as a collection. Lee says, funnily enough, I see loads of vintage ashtrays at antique fairs. Yeah, they're around. I think if I went to, say, Tyab Packing House, which is our big antique place on the other side of Melbourne, I'd probably see some. Keith says, I got your headphones. Well, the same brand anyway. Yeah, these are Sennheisers, and every time they're cheap, I pick them up when I need them. I've got 2 pair, and they're both really good. I like what they do, and the sound reproduction is great. My day-to-day drivers, though, I've got some Samsung earbuds, which I use. and I like them because if I lose them, I can track them down. But yeah, Milesh, you also a friendly reminder that hit the like button if you haven't already. It helps with the algorithm. Thanks. She's my PR maestro. Truly, she was 60s like me. Don't think any of us grew up around households with ashtrays. Absolutely, yeah. There were Chateau Tanunda ashtrays around our house. My father didn't smoke, but his girlfriend did. And my mum smoked for a while when I was with her. Keith says, Minor Wireless Sennheiser 2020 Christmas present to myself. Yeah, good choice. You're never not going to use them if they're sound cancelling in particularly. They're useful. There are times when you need to zone out from the world, and if you just have the headphones on without any music or podcasts or anything coming through them, yeah, they're crazy useful. My earbuds I really like, and I like the fact that I can put them on a wireless charging thing and just let them go. But I promise, guys, reference books. I'll do this one first because it's the most out there reference book I've got. It's actually a slice of autobiography, which I like. I picked this one up, and it's not. I don't always remember where I bought books, but this one I do because I picked it up in Seattle in 1998 when I was there in a secondhand bookshop. It's written by Mel Torme, and it's back in the 60s. He says, use them when I'm doing jobs around the house. There are no wires getting in the way. They're modern marvels. Absolutely, I agree. Wireless headphones are fantastic. But anyway, this book, Mel Torme, in the 1960s, his career was in a bit of a slump because jazz was in a bit of a slump in the 60s. And he took a job as the musical director on Judy Garland's TV series, and it turned out to be like a 2-year nightmare for him. His marriage was collapsing at the time. He had a whole bunch of shit going on in his life. And he wrote a book called The Other Side of the Rainbow with Judy Garland on the Dawn Patrol. And it's a scathing kind of criticism of Judy Garland when he was working with her and how needy she was and how she kind of wore him ragged and how she manipulated people while she was doing this. It's a really interesting read, this one. I'm going to have to reread it because I haven't read it for a while. But Mel Torme was a fine writer. Apart from being a fine singer, he was a fine writer as well. He did a novel called Winner with a Y, W-Y-N-N-E-R, which is kind of a romantic play about Hollywood in the 50s and 60s, which is really interesting. Yeah, his son was a writer on Star Trek. Tracy Torme was a writer on Star Trek and also on Sliders. Yeah, Strong Develop. Yeah, I'm not sure. It came out a long time ago. You might be able to find it on eBay if you can't find it anywhere else. So that's the first reference book. The next one is 2 books. Written by Simon Callow, the actor. Brett Costa said, my favourite actor belonging to my grandfather's very Art Deco and amber globe with a brass cigarette holder. Hasn't been used for looking great. My favourite is Hollywood. I've got Hollywood Babylon. It's up there on the shelves, but last time I did one of these things with reference books, I'd use that one. So I wanted to use different reference books. These 2 are biographical books about Orson Welles by Simon Callow, the British actor. And the first one is The Road to Xanadu, which is about Welles' early life right up to the point he made Citizen Kane. And it's beautifully researched, really well written. It's written from the viewpoint of an actor too, which gives a lot of good insights into it. I like this one a lot. It's incredibly readable. It explains why Orson Welles became the human being we know as Orson Welles in a really interesting way. It's kind of got a whole bunch of interesting details. And it talks about Orson Welles when he was young, kind of sleeping with a lot of women, sleeping with a lot of famous women. And the interesting thing, there's a line in there saying, Orson Welles never slept with Angela Moorhead. Angela Moorhead was not attracted to men. So there's that one. Really good read. The other one is the second volume of it. There hasn't been a third yet, unfortunately, called Hello Americans, which is about Orson Welles at the time he made The Magnificent Ambersons and then went to South America to make documentaries for the US government. And while he was there, the studio RKO destroyed the Magnificent Amazon and edited it to hell with the help of Robert Wise, who was then an editor as well as a director. Really interesting, talking about that particular time in American history during the war when they were trying to get South America on board and not have the South American countries steer over to the Nazis. But yeah, really interesting book that. There's also a third volume of biography that Simon Callow did. And this one's called Charles Lawton, A Difficult Actor. And it's the definitive biography of Charles Lawton. Goes into his sexuality. Simon Cowell's writing from the viewpoint of a gay actor, writing about a closeted gay actor. And he has some wonderful insights. Doug Sims, what was with Orson Welles often wearing fake noses in many of his movies? Orson Welles didn't like his nose. He had a small nose. And, he had large features but a small nose. And so he did that. He did wear lots of fake noses in his movies because he was kind of ashamed of his nose, which is an odd thing, but then there's a certain vanity that actors have. But you get a little bit of that in the two Simon Cowell books about why Orson Welles wore the noses. He also did things like he was with the Abbey Players in Ireland when he was like 19 years old, traveled to Ireland and worked with Irish actors in the Abbey Players in Dublin. Really fascinating guy, and the early career of Orson Welles is a really interesting thing. This next one's a book that I like because it's from a whole bunch of people. It's writings from a whole bunch of different movie guys. Brett says, watch Night of the Hunter for the first time a few months back. Brilliant movie. It's incredible. It becomes almost mythical and almost a fairy tale in that way, a big bad wolf story, even though it starts with that grounding in rural America. Yeah, Night of the Hunter is fantastic. But this one's called Movies, edited by Gilbert Adair, and it's just essays by a whole bunch of different people who were involved in movies. Let's see, I'll go to the page. There's stuff by Henry Miller, Sergei Eisenstein, Andre Bazin about Charlie Chaplin, Raymond Chandler talking about Oscar night in Hollywood, John Updike, Francois Truffaut, just a whole bunch of different essays about Hollywood. And it's great to dip into this and just get a couple of essays under your belt when you got a spare moment to understand 20th century cinema. It really is a compact and really interesting way to get insights into what people who were there at the time thought about Hollywood when they weren't kind of under the thumb of the studios. Really interesting. These ones are TV ones, and I've talked about them before, but I can never talk about them often enough. Harlan Ellison's 1960s essays about television, The Glass Teat and the Other Glass Teat. These are fantastic. They eviscerate so much of the mediocrity and blandness and the kind of racial prejudice of 1960s American television. All the TV series that people now think are great are gutted by Ellison in this. And there's also a whole bunch of other social things about Vietnam protests, about the Democratic Convention in Chicago in 68. Really useful essays, and you can kind of dip in them. It covers everything from being shafted by the studios and the making of the Oscar, the movie that he did the script for, which was incredibly, wonderfully bad. He goes from that to then talking about Saturday morning cartoons. The Last Teat and the Other Glass Teat are really fascinating time capsules as much as anything else of a particular time in history. And I love them for that. They're very rereadable. So any questions or anybody want to make any comments? I'm going to have a drink while you guys think of it. Keith F., yeah, the relationship between Torme and Garland. Judy Garland had a TV series for 2 seasons in the 60s. She had her troubles. And Mel Torme was brought on as a musical director. His career in nightclubs and records was kind of diminishing a bit, so he took the gig and she became incredibly needy, and she really kind of drained everybody around her. She played the diva a lot. There's just so much fascinating stuff in there. Yep, the only movie, who was the editor of that book? I'll find it for you again. Hang on a sec. Gilbert Adair, Adair. To get a copy of if there's anybody in it. Tamara Closet, copies of Glass Kitten, the other glass are probably lost in the cosmos after moving around a lot. Great books, definitely of an era. Absolutely. I could never hear about Mel without thinking about Night Court and MST3K. Yeah, he did a lot of things. He actually turned up in an episode of Sliders as well, playing an alternate version of Mel Torme. But yeah, I like Mel Torme stuff. There's a couple of good albums he did in the 60s. He did a couple of good ones later as well. But I remember him, he was in a movie called, I'm trying to think of it. It was a biography of Rodgers and Hart. Let me just, I'm going to have to do this. Hang on a second. Word to Music, 1948. Here we go. Yeah, and Mickey Rooney's playing Larry Hart. Looked nothing like Larry Hart apart from the fact that he was short. And they got all sorts of actors and singers from 1948 in it because Larry Hart had just died. Totally kind of straight-washed Larry Hart because he was a gay man in the closet at the time. And Mickey Rooney is throwing this big party and he's pissed as a newt. And he goes up to the band leader, and the band leader is Mel Torme. At this band he's got at this party. And Mel Torme does like a definitive version of Blue Moon, which is really fantastic. It's totally just out of the blue. We didn't even know he was in the picture up to that point. And he does this beautifully smooth version of Blue Moon. And then Mickey Rooney walks away and takes the camera with him. Yeah, Darren Bennett, I thank Stephen King's Dance Macabre for pointing me to Glass Teeth. Yeah, I've got Dance Macabre in the other room too. It really is a nice insight first into Stephen King's influences. But yeah, it really is a good book to read if people haven't already. Let's have a look here. Yep. Go between Pop and Jazz when he and Paul Anka are in a fist fight. My money would be on Mel Torme, but it'll only be on points. Doug Sims, it's a bit like picking a favorite child. But do you have a favorite go-to movie to lift my spirits? Harvey with James Stewart, your one? For me, it's probably The Young Girls of Rochefort. Demoiselles de Rochefort, Jacques Demy. That one, which starts out with a beautiful dance sequence on a very unusual bridge. And then it's got Catherine Deneuve and her sister, Francois Dorliac. It's got Danielle Darrieux. It's got George Takiris. Really great. Hi, FG. How you doing? Yep. Happy New Year. Not quite New Year yet. We've got 15 minutes to kill. Keith F. Just got to go. Just dropping in to say hi, wishing Sal Luna and all the viewers Happy New Year. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate your support of the channel, mate. I appreciate everybody's support of the channel. It really is gratifying because, in a sense, I'm throwing these things out and hoping they find an audience. I'm trying to get an audience, and of course, it is increasing slowly. But the support of people is crucial to what I'm doing here, and I never will underestimate it. It really is. Biography of Sergio Leone. I don't know, Grant, but it might be something good to Google. Or let me see what I can find for you, and I'll put a link if I can. Let's have a look here. Let's have a look. I can't see a biography. I'm looking down YouTube. It doesn't look like there's a good. Hang on, there's one from University of Minnesota Press, I think. Let me just see what I got. Sergio Leone, Something to Do with Death by Christopher Frayling. Frayling's a good writer, so I suggest that. I'll post you the link here so you can take a look at what I got yourself. But Anthony Deal, Singapore, $10. Happy New Year, Terry. Thank you for all the brilliant and insightful videos in 2020. Thank you very much, Anthony. I appreciate that a lot. Here's the link to what I've got on the Sergio Leone thing. Props to Anthony. Yeah, thank you very much. Must be queue to go. Sound gone haywire. Thanks and Happy New Year to all. Is the sound okay for anybody else? Because if it's not, I can try to tweak things. You know, I can give amphetamines to the mice on the little wheels who are running things around here. But yeah, let's see. But yeah, movie books. Let me see. I've got one more, which is tangentially a movie book, and of course I've moved it to the bottom of the pile. Sound effect for Anthony. Let's see what I got for Anthony.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Yep, the welcome to the party, pal, from Die Hard. Let's see. I'll see what I got in here. Sound is fine now, but the connection went a bit wobbly a few minutes ago. Yeah, everybody's streaming things here in Australia and using the internet. But sound and image went glitchy for me a few minutes ago, but it's back to normal now. That's okay, Anthony. Thank you. And I'll tell you what, there was a video breakup about 5 minutes ago, but I assumed it was at your end. There was a bit of lag before Middle Age Geek Girl. Thank you for everybody doing the troubleshooting on this. I'll give you a little bit more of Hugh Grant.
Listen to the rain on the roof go. Pit, pitty, pat, pit, pitty, pat.
Can't do too much because I'll get demonetized. But yeah, so here's the other one. Now, this one's by Kenneth Tynan. Fantastic theatre critic in England in the 1950s and 1960s. I've got a whole bunch of books of his reviews over there. And he also did the screenplay for Polanski's version of Macbeth, amongst other things. Die Hard is a Christmas movie, absolutely. But he also did a whole bunch of essays. So this one's The Sound of Two Hands Clapping. And it's a whole bunch of his essays. And he does essays about interesting movie people. He does, and he talks to them as well. He does one about Laurence Olivier. He does one about Nicole Williamson, which is really interesting. Marlene Dietrich, Lenny Bruce, Ethel Merman, Noel Coward, and Roman Polanski before Roman Polanski did what he did. Really interesting book, which I picked up for $1 in Glebe when I was living in Glebe in the 80s, and I've kept it with me because I love the way Tynan writes about, and when he does celebrity interviews and celebrity overviews. He also does one about Eric Morecambe from Morecambe and Wise. Some of you will know who Eric Morecambe was. Others won't. But really interesting book, The Sound of Two Hands Clapping. And I love dipping into it and just reading the essays one by one. Luna is now asleep on the couch. Cool. Japanese film by Hirokazu Koreeda. Our Little Sister is a good one for raising the spirits. Feel good in a good way. Thanks for that. Striving to balance that I'm watching a fellow movie geek from Australia celebrate New Year's Eve live and talk about movies and chatting with other movie nerds and all around the world and this in real time. Yeah, people complain about the 21st century, but there's so much cool shit. Happy New Year, Andrew. And I was talking before about the Smithfield parties in Canberra. So you were definitely a part of those, mate. Always hoping for a glimpse of Luna. Luna was in earlier. If you really watch the live stream, you will see Luna, who is now asleep because she's tired from chasing possums around the backyard. Yeah, yeah, it was, says Andrew. Yep. Oh, that's actually, we haven't been together for New Year's for a long time, mate. But yeah, there's let's have a look. The internet's not bad sometimes. Absolutely. It's like any other tool. It's how you use it. Yep, 10 minutes left, actually 9 minutes left, come to think of it. Yeah, I've got the TV next to me and I'm kind of glancing at the New Year's Eve things on Sydney Harbour. I did New Year's Eve on Sydney Harbour once. It was fantastic. Tons and tons of people. I was living in Glebe at the time, so it was easy to get there. Sun finally coming up to start our last day of 2022 here. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what the future's like in 9 minutes. Striving to balance. So we'll see how we go. Those were the days. I mean, I can't really talk about them because if I do middle-aged geek girl, will stop moderating. But I had a lot of good times at the Smithfield parties. I made a lot of friends, and I kind of got my shit together just a little bit by being at them. Okay, Brett, happy birthday to your wife. She's already in bed. Well, it's a big day, isn't it? Mine's not till April. New Zealand is already in 2023. Yep. And kia ora to any New Zealanders watching. What's the future like? I know New Zealand and Tonga and Nuku'alofa and all those places are now in New Year's Eve already. Let's have a look here. Wow, so much nostalgia just washed over me with the Smithfield parties. But New Zealand, it'd be nice to go to New Zealand for New Year's Eve. I mean, I do know a few people there. But doing New Year's Eve in New Zealand and flying back will be a bit of fun. Not sure the cats would appreciate us being away while the fireworks are going off, but we could work something out. In fact, anyway, I mean, it'd be nice to do a kind of cold Christmas as well, because we've never done a cold Christmas, either of us. It's always barbecues and sunshine. And when I was a kid, we used to like peel the sunburnt skin off our arms at Christmas lunch. But almost there for Christmas. I've actually got a list of movies I'm looking forward to in 2023. It's not a particularly long list. There's my to-do list for 2023, but I won't start them until after midnight. So we got 7 minutes to kill. Any questions? Any other stuff going on? I'll show you this. I'll start the treasures of the man cave. Now, got given these by my friends Sue Ann and Trev. In fact, I got Trev to buy me some things. Doug Sims, my first live chat. I'm never around the right time. Great way to spend a New Year's Eve. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. But these are something I collect because the cats were premieres this year. We'll probably accept whatever you do. No, not our cats. Our cats are very anti-sports ball. But these are Australian men's magazines from the 1950s. We're going to watch Rocky Horror at midnight. Or Get Crazy. We could always watch Get Crazy, Andrew. And then we wake up in the morning to the version of Anything Goes from Indiana Jones of Doom, which was always the wake-up music at those parties. But yeah, Man Junior magazine, 1950s adult magazines. On the back, they've got lotteries where you can win a car and a caravan. But have I seen The Whale? No, I haven't seen The Whale yet, Anthony. I will see it. I'm looking forward to it. I like Brendan Fraser. I really like his work as a serious actor ever since I saw him do Gods and Monsters with Ian McKellen back around the turn of the century. I think he's definitely underrated as an actor. And if he's having his day in the sunshine as a serious actor rather than as a kind of movie star, I'm incredibly happy for him. Strong Bell says, winter in Alabama. It was single digits 1 week ago, but almost 70. 21 today. That's got to wear you out. Okay, no more Smithfield, says Sal. Okay, I won't do anything about Smithfield. We get our weather's going up and down too, because we'll get days where it's like 35 degrees centigrade, and then it'll dip down to like 13 or 14 as well. Weather systems have gone crazy. A little bit of consistency in January would be a nice thing for me to have. I really like hot weather. But kind of going up and down really sucks. What's The Great Dictator? One of Chaplin's best, absolutely. And it's The Great Dictator's also got a message which is still timely in it. I saw it for the first time a couple of years ago, and I really appreciated it. Well, let's see, we've got 4 minutes. So, yeah, basically these magazines are great because they've got a whole bunch of cartoons in, but they've also got short stories which are adventure oriented. Let me just find one or two. I've got to be careful because there are also unclad ladies in these magazines. Let's go a bit further into it. The 5 o'clock shroud, that kind of stuff, those kind of adventure stories. And there's also a cartoon strip, which was always in it, which lasted from the 50s to the 1970s, called Devil Doon, about an Australian adventurer who with his sidekick, his name is Desert Head because he's bald, kind of go around and have these adventures. I mean, there's an intellectual property here that'd make a really good period movie of 1950s Australian adventure stuff. And I always liked Devil Doom. Unclad ladies, and yeah, let me have a look. I can't show them to you, but I'll have a look. Yeah, yeah, they want some of. There's actually a couple of them where they are, but that kind of unclad for most of it. But then they throw an occasional topless things. Ray Costa neighborhood fireworks have just started here. Don't they have a watch? Absolutely. Yeah, of course I'll have a look at it. But yeah, I've got a whole bunch of those magazines, which I kind of like and I collect, and actually read the stories too because there's these really concise. There might be like 10,000 word short stories which are action oriented. Cockatoos have just started up. Yeah, there are talking headshots, and a lot of them are talking headshots. But as the story progresses, at the start, like the first 2 pages are talking headshots setting out the plot, but they do get more interesting as the stories progress. But yeah, it is kind of anime. It's pre-anime, and each issue had how many pages of the Devil Doom story? So there's 2, 4. So they have 6 pages of the stories in there, basically telling a whole story in each one. And they were really popular. They got very racy in the 1970s. But yeah, people haven't really written the history of these kind of magazines before. There's another one of the covers. I've got 3 of them here. Yeah, they're kind of their time. There's also some good kind of adventure writing in them as well as the pictures of the ladies and the cartoons and things like that. I'm fascinated by that era. Just think those boobs are most likely. No, they probably are dead. And it looks like we're doing a countdown. So let's have a look here. Got to wait for it to click over to midnight because New Year's Eve on the TV is delayed because I've actually got the TV on. Let's see. Clicking down to midnight soon. I haven't got a second counter on this fucking thing. Let me have a look. Waiting for it to go. Folks are going crazy here. I'm lagging. Okay. Yeah, they are going crazy here. I can just hear them now outside because I took one of the cans off. But oh, okay. Sorry about the lag. It's probably because it's heading towards midnight. So we'll see how we're going. Let me just take a look at this. I'll turn off the TV so I'm not using as much of the internet with the TV set. And we'll go, yeah, it's midnight. Happy New Year, everybody. 2023, which sounds, each year sounds futuristic. I mean, 1998 sounds futuristic. Happy New Year to everybody. Welcome to the future. Yep, more people are streaming around midnight, absolutely striving to balance. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, middle-aged geek girl. Gotta get a little kiss. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Darren Bennett, Australian $20. Happy New Year, more time for things. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Darren. Got to do a sound bite for you. Okay, middle-aged geek girls here. Let's have a look here. Find you a sound bite. Let me have a look. Okay, we'll do the one from the Australian movie Stone with Vincent Gill, who died this year. Satan! A lot of fireworks in Canberra. Oh, it's over at last. Welcome to the world of tomorrow. Absolutely. I'll see if I've got another one. What have I got?
Luna's sleeping.
Luna's sleeping.
Marabunta.
She's asleep.
What was it? Happy New Year to Luna, Grant. Thank you.
She's
Yeah.
asleep.
Yeah, she's having a sleep. Fortunately, she's asleep because
Oh,
they can get distressed by the fireworks, and hopefully they won't. I know that Jill, the other cat, the black one, gets very upset with the noise. So we're trying to be good cat parents. But yeah, we got a lot. is about 5 doors down from us. There are a bunch of people that go into the middle of a street. It's a fairly quiet street, and let their fireworks off there. And then there are people 2 blocks away and 4 blocks away. I'm not sure where they get them from. But yeah, those it's problematic, and it's been happening for like 15 years around here. And it's the fireworks are always a bit of a trouble for animals, though. Luna is very sanguine about it. She doesn't get phased by anything. Lightning, thunder, rain. She'll be out there in the backyard just grooving around. She's awake now and startled, not sure where Jill is, but probably hiding. Yeah, we do have 2 cats. Jill would be under the bed. She'll be under our bed. But sorry that Luna's startled. I can hear the fireworks. They're coming from every direction now. What are they trying to do? Emulate Ukraine? Yeah, 2023 still looks like 2022. It does, but wait till the sun comes up and there'll be jetpacks all over the place. Not just animals. Those of us with anxiety don't do well with that either. You okay there, middle-aged geek girl? If you need me, I can kind of go over there and see. Let's see. Some of us used to have at least. Some of them used to have at least one Nazi-themed story in it. My favorite was when the cover featured animals or reptile attacks, weasels, bats. Yeah, these magazines do. They're fantastic for that kind of thing. They're men's adventure magazines as much as anything else. The sexy stuff was part of it, but the two-fisted adventure stories were the bits I like. Sound like bombs over the house. Yeah, definitely middle-aged good girl. Put the headphones on. Middle-aged good girl does suffer from anxiety, and this kind of stuff can be quite rough on her. But yeah, so let's have a look here. Yeah, I'll start with the movies that I'm looking forward to in 2023. There aren't that many of them because there aren't. There are a lot of films that are kind of so, and I'm kind of wondering about. And there are some films I don't have too much detail on. Apparently, there is going to be a Philip Marlowe movie with Liam Neeson in it, set in the 1930s, directed by Neil Jordan. It's been released in some markets, in other markets it's not, but I'm up for a Raymond Chandler adaptation, so there's that coming up, which is one of the movies I'll watch. I don't expect it to be fantastic because Liam Neeson's track record over the last decade hasn't been exemplary, I'll be honest with you. But yeah, so that's one of the movies I want to look at. Let me have a look. In February, we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I'm kind of looking forward to. I'm a locked-in Marvel guy. I'll watch whatever they put out and I'll evaluate it accordingly. But yeah, I'll watch the Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania movie. David McCullough, I celebrated your New Year's Eve by treating my cat. When you say treating your cat, did you give it some food or did you give it some medicine? David. But yeah, what's your cat's name too? You got to name your cat. We've got to build cats across the world on this channel. So yeah, the Ant-Man movie I'm kind of looking forward to because I like the idea of Kang the Conqueror being the villain. I'm locked into Marvel's thing. Okay, please avoid giving any spoilers for those of us still in 2022. Yeah, well, there are robots breaking down the door. Those dog robots from Boston Dynamics are breaking down the door. Apart from that, D. Lee, I won't give you any spoilers. Colin Watts' cat's called Esmeralda. Good name for a cat. Really cool. Yeah, a ROM name. So, cat treats name is Ruffles. Yep, the gentleman. Ruffles, the gentleman cracksman, which was a TV series in the 1960s BBC did with Anthony Valentine, which was really good. And I've read the novel. Spot, after Granny Weatherwax. Fair enough. Spoiler, Twitter hits an iceberg. Yeah, Twitter's been going crazy. The parallels between the Edward Norton character in Glass Onion and Elon Musk hasn't eluded me. Don't look behind me. I don't need to because I can see behind me on the screen. FG, I'm looking forward to the next Shang-Chi. Cat's name is Molly Doodle. Yeah, Shang-Chi, I want to see the new one too. Curious to see what James Gunn does with the DC in the coming years. I believe James Gunn hinted on Twitter today that he might be doing that Batman thing with his son, the one who was raised by the League of Assassins. He may be doing a bit of that with Batman, and he may be doing a very different Superman thing. Andrew Gill, turns out QAnon was right and Kennedy has returned. Yep, that's right too. He's at my door asking for booze and women. But let's see, I have invites to Great Mastodon instance if anyone wants, not one, but the really big ones. Post a link if you want to, or people can message you, striving to balance. If you're ready to just, I'm going to stick around. I mean, it's kind of like you just climb above the tsunami and see what it does to the place. That's the way I'm going with Twitter. I'm doing okay with Twitter at the moment. My theory is that at some stage, Elon Musk is going to sell it before it totally ruins the investment. He'll find a buyer and somebody will buy it and fix it. Yeah, I've got one on Mastodon, but I don't use it at the moment. I've got 3 Twitter accounts. I've got one for the channel, I've got one personal one, and I've got another one that was for my old podcast. And I $2 for Twitter. Yeah, no, look, I'd go as high as $25 personally for Twitter. I think that name value alone, I just like close down Twitter and just put my YouTube videos up on it, and just kind of work from there. I'm sure at $25 I could definitely monetize it and make it work for me. But I think that Twitter shows the dumbness of billionaires and the dumbness of people who buy things that other much more talented people create because they've got the money to do it. And then they kind of just use it as their own playpen, not realizing that it's communications networks that's used for a lot of different reasons by a lot of different people. Awareness of disease, support for LGBTIQIA plus youth, a support for women suffering breast cancer and people suffering other cancers, and people with disabilities and all sorts of things. There are so many networks that use Twitter as a means of communication, a means of getting information out to people who really need it. That I think that whatever Musk does, people are going to stick around as long as they possibly can, because those connections and those networks and those communication modalities are important to them. Yeah, it said it as a joke and couldn't back out. A billionaire burning down something that was so useful. Yeah, absolutely. In 2023, yep, middle-aged geek girl turns 50, which is an achievement. And we are going to solo. There you go. Striving to Balance gave us the link for the Mastodon, so that's good. If anybody wants it, definitely go there. I'll check it out later. Am I looking to Expendables 4 this year? No, I will probably watch it when it comes on streaming because it's meathead action, and occasionally there are times when, after watching a really fine film, you want some meathead action. I'm up for that. But let's see what else I got. John Wick Chapter 4, on the other hand, is what I'm looking forward to. I like the John Wick universe. I like what Chad Stahelski, the director and writer of John Wick, has done in creating this weird universe. I think Keanu's the right actor for it. I like Ian McShane. I like Lance Reddick. I like the whole ensemble. I like the kind of mise en scène of the whole thing and the style of it. So I'm looking forward to John Wick 4. The Ruffle series from the 70s was quite faithful to the Hornung stories. Horning with Arsene Conan Doyle's brother-in-law, and they had a bit of a spiky relationship. That's a shame because I get on really well with my brother-in-law. Have I only got one? Yeah, I've only got one. And he and I get on fine. He gives me fine wines and good food when I visit. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, I like Hornung stuff. And I like Ruffles as a character. Oh, by the way, there are a whole bunch of things coming in the public domain this year. Middle-aged kid girl won't watch John Wick because the puppy dies at the start of it. But yeah, this year, tons and tons of things are coming in the public domain. As America gets into 2023, Metropolis is in the public domain. The movie Metropolis with that Fritz Lang did is in the public domain. And that's going to mean that you're going to get tons and tons of different versions of Metropolis coming up. and the songs of Jerome Kern and all sorts of other things are coming out into the public domain, and a whole bunch of intellectual properties are as well. So there'll be some real, there'll be people kind of clamoring for the public domain works that are just coming into the public domain, and there'll be a whole bunch of movies made of them. Keanu is the right actor for many things. Yeah, I like Keanu in a lot of things. The Bill and Ted third movie, I thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was great. But I like what Keanu does with a whole bunch of things, and that last Matrix movie was not the best. Never really a fan of the Matrix series, but that one was really bad. Hornig did write Raffles' novel, wasn't too great, and was marred by anti-Semitism. Yeah, that's kind of like the Bulldog Drummond stories of the time. Yeah, but I've got one of the collections of Hornung's work and Raffles. Never read the books. Yeah, but they're worth reading. I mean, they're very much that kind of Clubland hero kind of stuff. But Raffles needing to keep up with the Joneses in a sense, dips into becoming a gentleman thief, even though he is a professional cricketer amongst other things. Yeah. Brett Costa, Metropolis in 4K will be great. Pandora's Box in 4K will be stupendous. Yeah, Louise Brooks. I love Louise Brooks acting. Sequel to Constantine's in the works. Yeah, there is that too. Let's see what else we've got coming up this year. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, the one that's got Chris Pine in it and Michelle Rodriguez. I'm looking forward to that too, because they're finally doing a Dungeons and Dragons movie that's got gelatinous cubes and mimics and owlbears and all those things in there. Yep, all works from 1927, now public domain in the future. Adam Savage wants to apologize to me personally for the Matrix sequels on which he worked. Yeah, our mutual friend Lewis Morley worked on them as well, which he did fun with, and he said Keanu was a really nice guy, and Keanu gave the special effects people a lot of money out of his significant wage as well during that period of time. But yeah, the Dungeons and Dragons movies look like it's going to be a lot of fun. It's not to be taken seriously, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well, particularly given the fact that the protagonist is a bard. You know, he's not a paladin, he's not a magic user, he's a bard. I kind of like that idea as well. It works, and I think it very much is tapped into the heart of Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm a Carbon God. I knew people in those movies, mostly the third film. Yeah, the Mimic looks good in the trailer. So does the Gelatinous Cube. You only see that for a moment. Putting on the Ritz, Irving Berlin is now public domain. So yeah, middle-aged geek girls doing tons of public domain research for me. Thanks for that. In July, we've got a couple of good movies that I think are coming out, which I'm looking forward to as well. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer with Cillian Murphy is coming up too. And I'm looking forward to that because in spite of the sound quality problems, I did like Tenet. I'm growing to like Interstellar, though. I still think the daddy issue thing is a problem for me. But Oppenheimer looks interesting. It's, of course, about Robert Oppenheimer, who helped create the nuclear bomb. And it looks like it's got really nice period feel about it as well. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. We've also got a Scorsese movie about FDR, about Roosevelt, with Leonardo DiCaprio starring. That one could be good. It might not be, but it could be good. Heard nothing about it apart from the title. But it's interesting that Scorsese in his 80s is still making movies. Spielberg in his 80s, he's about 80 now, is still making movies with the Fablemans. Yeah, and Nana McCarvan God, wonder what the Australian government will admit today from 30 years ago, because parliamentary papers become public knowledge after 30 years, so we find out what governments did 30 years ago that we hate. Doug Sims, I'm hoping the new Indiana Jones will be good. The title is really bland. What is it? The Dial of Doom or something like that? Dial of Destiny. It sounds like a very bad computer game title. And I didn't like the last Indiana Jones movie. I think they're milking the cash cow until it turns into beef jerky. But I'm sure it'll make money, and I'm sure people will go and see it. But yeah. Let's see. Ruffles was created a bit of anti-Sherlock Holmes, and Conan Doyle blew hot and cold about his brother-in-law making a criminal a hero. Well, anti-heroes are interesting. Yeah, I like Sherlock Holmes and I like what Conan Doyle did, but I think anti-heroes have got that kind of ambiguity about them, which makes them much more interesting in a modern context. Yep. Middle-aged geek. I love Harry, but he really needs to hang up the whip and hate. And trust me, I love Harrison Ford. Yeah, she does. She's a big Harrison Ford fan. We'll probably go and see the Indiana Jones movie, but I think that a kind of resurrecting old intellectual properties in that kind of way doesn't particularly work for me. For me, tell the next story. Tell me another story. Show me another universe. Show me something from somebody else's viewpoint that I don't know about. What was the government up to in 1993? Was that Howard? It might have been Howard. It should have been not hate. Indiana Jones and the Ouija Board of Avarice. Indiana Jones and the Afternoon Nap. Yeah, Keating's creative insulting. It could have been. Yeah, it was Keating Prime Minister at the time. We'll see. But yeah, 30 years. And also you've got the other thing, which I hate with a passion, which is the King's Honours List. So all of the awards, like the Orders of Australia and all that kind of thing, come out this year. Keating versus Houston election. That'll be interesting. But yeah, all of those awards, you find out which people have been sucking up to royalty, basically, and we're still stuck with the English system, but we've changed the names of the awards. Yeah, it was about the time of Houston's GST idea. We'll see how we go. I'm sure John Houston will be interviewed by every television person. Yeah. I wonder what Keating did. The interesting one will be to see what Howard did, particularly in a few years when we find out what Howard did to court Pauline Hanson and all the conservative politicians. Yeah, I hope we get a public referendum too. First thing we're doing is constitutional recognition and a voice to Parliament of Indigenous people. That referendum is going to be by the end of the year. But I hope we get a republic too. 100%. Most Australians hope for a republic because why should we be hooked into an island off the coast of Europe, even though it does have some wonderful people who support YouTube channels on it? I think it's time that the country grew up. Seeing the Howard cabinet papers we were staying alive for. Definitely, Darren. I want to see, people keep going, why would you want to live forever? And I go, because interesting things keep happening. The universe unfolds before us. Why wouldn't you want to live forever? I love the idea of seeing what comes up, and good and bad. I'm here for the journey. That voice to Parliament referendum will be nasty, absolutely, because there'll be a whole bunch of mining magnate money going into the no vote. I've got a feeling though that the voice will get through. People were worried about the marriage equality thing as well. So yeah, we'll see. I hope we're not alienating the people from overseas when we're talking about this stuff, because it is, as middle-aged Google just said. Please have a republic referendum so that Canada can follow suit. ME, I'm with you. We're all on the same page here. Watch Catch Me If You Can yesterday. It's enjoyable. Yeah, it is light. I like DiCaprio when he plays light as well as when he plays seriously. Particularly in things like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I liked him a lot and his character in that one. Because, again, it's a kind of flawed protagonist. But I want to see, Tarantino says he's only going to make one more movie. I want to see what it is, and I want to see it tomorrow. I know that middle-aged geek girl doesn't like Quentin Tarantino's work, but for me, he's one of those directors where I'm going to go see it on the first day whenever he makes a new movie. But at least you don't have the Union Jack on your flag. True. We should do it the way, if you have a look at it, Event Horizon, where Sam Neill plays an Australian character, even though he is a New Zealander. And they've got an Australian flag there with the Southern Cross on it and the Aboriginal flag instead of the Union Jack. That's a flag I could get behind. I'm not that big on flags. Having said that, I'm honoring my ancestry by having it's upside down my Welsh flag. I've got that here in the man cave. It's fluttering in the breeze. That's nice. But yeah, only Tarantino I didn't rate was Kill Bill 1 and 2. I kind of like Kill Bill 1 and 2. Yeah, we hope everyone outside the USA exemplifies sanity. Reality probably disagrees. Look, I think that there are best practices when it comes to countries. And there are some countries in Europe that are, from my viewpoint at least, doing that. Denmark and Sweden and places like that. There we go, Lee. I thought you'd like that one. So why should we steal the Aboriginal flag when we need a completely new flag? I don't think it's stealing. I think it. I've read the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which is the statement about an Indigenous voice to Parliament. I think the generosity of the Indigenous peoples of Australia to include us in their story, which is 60,000 years old, means that having their flag as a part of our flag is a strong symbol. Yep. Yeah, the Welsh flag is the best. I mean, the red dragon, it just works. Mythical creatures on flags are cool. Yeah, Darren Bennett, absolutely. Shame the Nazis took the Eureka flag. Yeah, if people should Google the Eureka flag and find out what that was. These days, there are a whole bunch of cookers who have taken over that flag. Yeah, we got on a really weird tangent with this live stream, haven't we? We're talking about politics and other things. But you know, what the hell? It's going where the chat wants it to go. And let me see, what else have I got for this year that I want to watch? I want to see the Barbie movie with Margot Robbie in it, because Greta Gerwig, the director, is a really good director, and I think she's going to kind of deconstruct all the Barbie stuff. No, we don't want a boxing kangaroo on a flag. That's for barbecues. That's not for countries. Yeah. So, has anybody seen the trailer for the Barbie movie? It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, middle-aged good girl's got a tattoo. She's going to get this year too. All the best to you for the New Year's, Terry. Love from London. Thank you, Zammy Adams. Yeah, 2023 has been good so far. I've been talking with people. That's always a good thing. And the bots are back. And middle-aged geek girl is going to earn her $2.50 that I'm going to give her. Shame New Zealand didn't go with the laser eye Kiwi flag. Yeah. Delias, I understand that many Canadians don't want to be made a republic an issue because it could reopen the Quebec question. Yeah, I can see that. That's a complex problem about which I don't know enough, to be honest. Lee might get a tattoo for your 40th, might be an Ouroboros. Yeah, I can see that. Good, honest tattoo. Andrew Gore, thinking of a jellyfish tattoo, there are many negative connotations to that. Not really. Happy New Year from New York, Gigi Galaxy. Yeah, Happy New Year. I know you get yours later on, but you can enjoy mine. Yeah, 2023 is turning out fine so far. Haven't had any food or coffee yet this year, but that's okay. Favorite sleazy 80s movies? Champagne for Breakfast, which is a movie nobody knows about because it's an adult film with Leslie Bovey and John Leslie in it. But it's got production values up to here for an adult film. So there's that. There's Basket Case, of course. I like Basket Case a lot. Lee Lavery, JJ McCullough has a great channel on YouTube explaining Canadian policy. He does. I subscribe to JJ McCullough. Don't agree with his politics always, but he is a good explainer from a kind of cultural viewpoint of Canadian politics. Let's see, favorite sleazy 80s movies. I know, the Ginger trilogy that Sherry Kafara did with Don Shane, her husband. Ginger, The Ambushes, Girls Are for Loving. There you go. There's some sleazy 80s movies for you. Watched 380 new movies this year. You inspired me. Thank you. And let's see. I'm going to get my letterboxd up and just count how many I watched in 2022. Let's have a look here. I'll get to start a whole new list because I do annual lists. I got 338. The last one I watched was Paddington 2. 338 is not bad. I did 400 odd one year, but for 338 is pretty good. Ginger movies. Oh, so I apologize. Inanimate Carbon got. They were the 1970s. Happy New Year, Doug. From Adelaide. Yeah, you'd be going fairly soon towards 2023. But yeah, lots of things I saw on VHS. ICG nailed it. Yep. Yeah, but the Digital Trilogy, I've got a vulgar fondness for. You can only get them in bad VHS transfers illicitly. 80s is a troubled era. Stuff like Revenge of the Nerds. Yeah, Revenge of the Nerds. I remember I was working with Rebecca McLaren doing the ABC Radio Darwin gig where I talk about movies. We decided to do 80s movies and we did Revenge of the Nerds. And then we found out that all of the nerds who were supposed to be the heroes were basically sex criminals. And so the next movie we did was Real Genius with Val Kilmer, which is directed by a woman. And that one was the college movie we should have done in the first place. Pets was another one, goes along with the Ginger films. Yeah, Pets is, who was in that? Candice Rialson, I think, was in that one. God, I got a memory for old movies that I saw in the 1970s. Yeah, Candice Rialson was an interesting actress. She was in Hollywood Boulevard as well, that Roger Corman did. Best movie I watched this year was Aniara. Yeah, Aniara was great. I did that on the channel. That one was mind-blowing. Now, let's have a look at my, well, I've got my letterboxed up. What did I watch? It was really good. Apart from Paddington 2, of course. Just so many movies and so many bad ones I watched over the year. Orpheus. I watched the Orpheus, the Cocteau Orpheus. That was really good. Let's have a look. I watched Rubberproof Fence. I already talked about that. I watched Rubberproof Fence, which is an Australian movie people should see. Let's have a look. Just so many of them. Just give me a moment, people. I've got to step away from the camera a little bit. I've got a little bit of a thing to do here. Oh, someone's sneaking in on me.
I was going to come in and fill the space. Now, I need to know if you've watched his 24-hour movie marathon, did he cheat by not watching the entire Andre Rieu video? I reckon he did. So let me know. Did he cheat?
Thank you for that. I just got co-opted. Okay, elevator music. Yeah, I should do that. Like Girl from Ipanema, we should have had there. I was expecting something like The Player. Even Ghostbusters is trouble because of Creepy Murray. Best movie I watched. Let's have a look here. Let's have a look. I'll go back to the letterboxed. What else did I watch that was interesting? So many movies here, and I've talked about all of them on the bloody channel. Let's have a look. The Green Knight was very good if you haven't seen The Green Knight. Watched a lot of Kung Fu movies this year. Let's have a look here. Everything Everywhere All at Once, of course, is fantastic. I enjoyed The Love Witch, and I talked about that on the channel. The Super Dave movie was fun. Putney Swope I rewatched, which is the Robert Downey Sr. novel about a black guy taking over a 1960s advertising agency in New York City. Let's have a look. Thank God It's Friday. Thank God It's Friday is my new vulgar pleasure. Chiefs get made to watch Keith Lemon again. No, the Andre Rieu thing, I put up with 2 hours of it because otherwise it would have taken up so much of the 24 hours. It was longer than Avatar: The Way of Water. It was like 3.5 hours on the Blu-ray. And I couldn't justify spending that long with one movie because I wanted to get through at least 13 films in the 24 hours. And so I made an executive decision on that. I watched 2 hours of it. I enjoyed like 30 seconds of the 2 hours. And I went on with the rest of the time. So, yeah. Andre, problematic for me. It's a weird universe, the kind of fan base and the audience and the music choices of Andre. I like classical music, but the way he does it is kind of odd for me. Nights in Rodanthe was the worst movie ever made. Let's see, what's the worst movie ever made for me? And did I watch? I watched The Room. Zebedee Colt. What's your favorite movie of his? There are very few Zebedee Colt movies I like. I've seen a couple of them, but I can't remember the titles of them unless he did The Devil and Miss Jones. Yeah, I'm not going to dive too deeply into that kind of genre on the channel. More than 2 hours is against the Geneva Convention, ME. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's get off the subject of adult films. I want to go somewhere else with this. Let's see what else I want to watch. June 2 comes out in November too. Denis Villeneuve's second half of June. I'm looking forward to that. I enjoyed the first one. And I kind of know the story, the second part of the story, but I really want to see the second half of Denis Villeneuve's Dune. But the first one's spectacular. I've got it on 4K. Grant McGowan, first movie I've seen at the cinema. That's easy. Move Over, Darling, James Garner and Doris Day. Saw it with my mum. She took me out as a special treat because she wanted to see it. And so we went to see Move Over, Darling in Sydney City. And I remember a car getting driven into the swimming pool. That's why I remember what movie it is. Sporting Grey was in one of Zebedee Colt's movies. Putney Swope's an interesting film. It also has a young Antonio Fargas in it. Yeah, absolutely. Antonio Fargas was in that really good documentary I saw this year as well. Is That Black Enough for You? I think that's what it's called. Let's have a look at it. Just find it here. Yeah, Is That Black Enough for You? The documentary that Elvis Mitchell did about black cinema, which I recommend. It's on Netflix. Fantastic documentary. Antonio Fargas turned up in that and spoke really interestingly about his career. After Hours, definitely. Griffin Dunn, After Hours is one of those really interesting nightmare movies. And it's a Scorsese movie few people talk about. First film of the cinema was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Lee. Yeah, I'm sure that twisted you badly. After Hours, yeah. I'm going to have to get a copy of After Hours, I think. I'm not sure if it's on Blu-ray here in Australia, but I would love to have a copy of After Hours to rewatch. I know that I did at one stage have a DVD, no, a VHS of it back in the day before I got rid of all my VHS tapes, except for 2 or 3 that I had signed. But yeah, I'm going to have to find a way to rewatch After Hours because I really liked it. I mean, I remember the whole setup of it, but I haven't watched it in a very long time. And revisiting a movie like that is something that I think I want to do this year. Last year was about me watching more quality movies. And to be honest with you, I kind of half succeeded looking at my letterbox list. I watched a whole bunch of genre films as well. But I did see some interesting movies of a more serious nature, not as much as I probably should have, because I really want to kind of fall in love with the deep end of the swimming pool in cinema more than I have. It was either for middle-aged girl, it was either Indiana Jones or a Star Wars movie. That's when you were 10 and fell in love with Harrison Ford. See, she calls him Harry because she thinks she knows him. But yeah, Move Over, Darling. The other movie I saw early, the first cinema movie was The Rescuers, Too Young for Star Wars, Game of Trojan. That's a shame. The other movie I remember seeing was This Island Earth, where my uncles John and Roy took me to see This Island Earth in the cinema, and it was fantastic. Yeah, Into the Night with Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer. Doug, yeah, that one's a good one too. Don't think it's quite as good as After Hours, but they're very much in the same kind of mood. and I think they both work. I really like Jeff Goldblum in Thank God It's Friday, where he plays a sleazy disco owner. That's really great. What would you say the most deep ending watch this one was probably Satan Tango. This Island Earth was great. Yeah, Fantasia. That's a good one, Andrew. That's really Digby, the biggest dog in the world. Father took me in '73, I think. Let me have a look at what's the deepest movie that I saw this year. I'm going to go through the list, and as you might understand, I think Carnet de Bal dance program. It's a 1930s French film, which is on Scorsese's list of best movies ever made. I really loved that. I think that's at the deep end of the pool. I did see Murnau's Faust and I saw Cocteau's Orpheus. I watched them on the same day, in fact. They were really eye-opening for me, and I love what they did with that kind of magical space in cinema, which was really great. Let me see. Other deep movies, I'm just going down through a whole bunch of quite shallow stuff here, but there were a few. Rubber Proof Fence, of course, I've already mentioned. That one definitely. Did a lot of rewatches. I did a lot of documentaries too, which was kind of interesting for the year. Gaslight, I rewatched. Gaslight, I think, is somewhat at the deep end. Then I watched movies like The Hill with Sean Connery, which was great. And let me have a look here. Yep, lots of shallow stuff here, lots of kung fu, lots of science fiction. Let me have a look. I'm sure I've seen more good films than this year. Man on a Swing, I really liked. That was another hidden gem for me this year. Let's have a look here. Advantageous, really good science fiction movie I recommend. Forbidden Photos of a Woman Above Suspicion. I watched that. It was a giallo that I enjoyed. Okay, that's it. Maybe I haven't watched as much really good stuff as I thought. But Tommy Wiseau's Room, I mean, deep as you get with that one. The Crawling Hand I watched. My letterboxd is really crazy. But I'm sure there are things I've left off the list because there are some. Love Serenade, I liked a lot, the Australian movie as well. I rewatched The Killer Elite the other day, which I enjoyed. But let me have a look here. Return to Witch Mountain. Star Wars was a film feud between Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, wasn't it? Yeah, it could have been. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that movie. Alexander the Great with Richard Burton. Yeah, it would have been out 65. The Room is shit, not in a fun way, says Inanimate Carbon God. Yeah, I know, but it's just so meme-worthy, that one. Best shows I watched was The Offer about Godfather being made. Okay, cool. Bodies. Haven't seen Bodies. But Murnau's Faust I really did enjoy, and Cocteau's Orpheus with Jean Marais, who's one of my favorite French actors. I really enjoyed. But I have got good films in the back room that I just don't watch often enough, and I really should, because it's okay to kind of go with the movies that you enjoy and the kind of genres you enjoy. But every time I stretch myself and watch something I wouldn't normally watch, like when I watched Tokyo Story for the first time, Yasujiro Ozu's movie, that one blew me away just about how simple but how deep it was. And I'm really going to have to dip into that a lot more, I think, in the future, because I want to keep growing as a movie buff, not just necessarily to talk about it on the channel, which I inevitably will, but to make myself happy with what I'm doing with my time. And I think that's Steppenwolf years ago was depressed. I haven't watched Steppenwolf in a long time. I did see it in the cinemas thinking it was going to have some nudity in it, but didn't. Back in the days when I was watching films just for the nudity. But I did watch Steppenwolf. Also watched The Serpent's Egg, which was a Bergman film, because I thought there would be nudity in it, but there wasn't. But of course, I was a bit of a Murnau fanboy. Have all these movies available courtesy of BFI and Eureka. You know the story about how Murnau died, Brett, do you? I'm not going to share it unless you ask me to. Tokyo Story was so good. Ozu's director hasn't disappointed me much. Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't seen Yasujiro Ozu's movies, they're so simple, but so deep that they draw you into the story and the characters, and it's a movie to love. David Bacall, I wish I could remember the first movie I saw in the theatre. Probably Doris Day movie with mum. Same with me. Common experience getting taken to women's films by your mum. But the nice thing was I got to spend time with my mum by myself, which was, Brett says, yes, I do know how he died. You should look up how F.W. Murnau died. It's an interesting story. If you find the true story, there's the kind of there's a print the legend story, and there's the actual story, which is very much different. It's one of the more interesting deaths in Hollywood. Yeah, nanocarbon god. Yeah, it might be true, might not be, but I've heard it from a number of sources over the years, and that for me is, print the good version for me. But yeah, first movie I saw in cinema was Three Stooges Meet Hercules. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that at the cinema too back in the day. Three Stooges Meet Hercules. I also saw Have Rocket Will Travel, because Three Stooges movies were good for Saturday matinees for kids. So definitely saw that. Yeah, Three Stooges movies were kind of bad because they didn't have Shemp and they didn't have Curly in them, because they came later in the state when they had Joe Besser in that for the third leg of the I think Andrew Gordon on the news of Pope Benedict's death. I'm off to bed. Good night and have a great year. You too, Andrew. Take care and look after yourself, mate. And, love to the family too. But yeah, I'm really going to have to focus myself a little more this year. I know there are a whole bunch of movies I'm going to be getting from Umbrella and Imprint, and I'm looking forward to watching what they put out too, because they're putting out some really nice hidden gems amongst all the stuff which is really obvious. They're putting out some really interesting hidden gems. No, Murnau skull got stolen a few years ago. No, but is there a marker for silent movie director skulls? Because I can always try to dig up a couple of local ones if there is money in it. But yeah, what would you steal F.W. Murnau's skull? Some kind of necromancy thing? It's a weird thing. Still hasn't been found. Doris Day's 60s movies were underrated. My granddad introduced me to the particular pairings with Rock Hudson, James Gunn, and Rod Taylor. Yeah, Move Over Darling was fine. The one with Rod Taylor was kind of okay. There was also one where she was paired off against Richard Harris. I think Caprice it was. That one is particularly bad. Yeah, Have Rocket Will Travel at the local matinee. Everybody saw Have Rocket Will Travel back in those days. And yeah, it was so much at the tail end of their career, and their best work was so far behind them, that those movies were great for little kids, but for people who are very much Three Stooges fans, they weren't all that great. It was stolen, it seems, from necromancy thing, possibly Nosferatu inspired, says Brett. Middle-aged geek girl says, I'm not biting. Is that a vampire joke? But yeah, Doris Day's career, I mean, her husband made her bankrupt, so she had to make all of these really shit movies in her TV series for that reason. Inanimate Carbon God, never seen a single Three Stooges movie. What am I missing? Very little, to be honest with you. Ross Skilton says, I watched a ton of films this year, made some good progress on watching French and Italian classics. There's so much good stuff to see when you start burrowing. It's crazy and fascinating. Absolutely. Richard Harris, okay, yeah. I won't get you started on Richard Harris, middle-aged good girl. But yeah, there's so much French cinema, and also I'm kind of getting more into things like Indonesian action cinema and things like that. Okay, Brett, you're heading off. Take care, and thank you for being part of the live stream. I really appreciate that. It's just a lot of fun to just hang out. Weirdly, the Three Stooges 60s movies introduced me to the earlier work, which often screened after school. Yeah, I remember that, Doug. I saw a lot of Three Stooges shorts after school. And I was just thinking the other week too, I talked about the Samurai TV series, but just how much kind of non-English language stuff was put into at least Australian afternoon TV viewing. There was like the Samurai, there was Prince Planet, there was Astro Boy, there were Phantom Agents, there were Johnny Socko and his giant robot. There was just, it was like they were, even though it was just like cheap product for the TV channels to show to us, they were starting to give kids at an early age a multicultural viewpoint on media and things they were watching on TV. And I hit the microphone arm again for about the 15th time. But yeah, that kind of acceptance of a broader world of media was definitely part of my childhood. Maybe it's a mad world. Three Stooges coming out. Everybody was in a mad world. Monkey, Samurai and Phantom Ages. Yeah, I really enjoyed watching those 3 episodes of The Samurai that I watched for the 24-hour thing. It brought me back, and the stories are quite good. They're small stories, but they are kind of themselves, and they play a little bit like westerns, but definitely in a Japanese context. French movies, a Red Balloon, a must see. Absolutely great. What would be my favorite French movie? Depends on the mood. I mean, I like Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and I like Young Girls of Rochefort, but I also like Breathless and Bon Depart. I like the French New Wave stuff. I like the crime movies that Jean Gabon did as Maigret. There are so many of them, and of course, I like the Cocteau ones now that I've seen Orpheus, and more recent ones, things like Amelie and The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec and things like that. They're just so much great stuff that we're never going to get time to watch all of it, but we can at least try. Marvelous things that don't show up often enough. And while Netflix is pumping out kind of second-rate action films, a lot of people aren't going to see them. But I know that there are things like some really good French crime movies from the 50s, which people could really enjoy if they were able to see them. And I think that there's room in Australia for a streaming service that just does things like kind of like SBS On Demand, but with a lot more kind of older film context. That would be great. French films I saw this year was La Lante. Yeah, that one I haven't seen, but I want to see it. I like that kind of French adventure, slightly science fiction-y kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't remember, but the Star of Samurai, came to Australia in the 60s and was treated like a rock star. Absolutely. And Peter Wingard came out in the 70s and was almost torn apart by young girls because of Jason King and Department S. None of the young girls knew that Peter Wingard was gay, but they tore the clothes off the guy. We were really, when somebody was big on TV in Australia and came from overseas, they were treated like gods and put on a pedestal when they weren't half torn apart by things. We really had a cultural cringe, but popular culture was a tsunami at times. Even I was a kid, and Skippy the bush kangaroo did an appearance at a shopping centre I went to, and afterwards I walked out the back, and there was this little wallaby sitting in the back of a truck with a whole bunch of gum leaves to chew on. But popular culture of the 60s was kind of unusual in that we wanted to reach out to the world a lot, and we kind of wanted to see things we'd never seen before, and we wanted that fantastic aspect of it. So things like Lost in Space were crazily popular here in Australia. When the first episode of Lost in Space was shown, kids in the schoolyard were talking about nothing else when I was a kid. I'm gesturing and hitting this thing again. But that kind of love of genre films and love of genre media has always been there with kids and always been there with young people. And people think it started after Star Wars, but it was there beforehand. Hey, Echo, how you doing? Welcome aboard. Sounds like 60s Japan with few inhibitions. Yeah. Do you remember the old 70s show Chopper Squad? Chopper Squad was crap. Chopper Squad was one of those ones where they had Eric Goldfield and people like that in it. But it was kind of emulating things from the previous decades, like Riptide. Thunderbirds are really great still today. Yeah, I mean, watching Thunderbirds and Stingray. I've got a sound thing from Stingray here.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. I love the model work, and that was one of the things that grabbed people is the production design on those Jerry Anderson series was incredibly good, and they made half of those series in an old manor house just outside London before they actually moved to a dedicated studio. And so all of the earlier stuff that Jerry Anderson's companies made in those puppet shows, particularly, was done in like a house, just a large house, rather than a dedicated studio. Yeah, glad to hear it, Echo. I hope Christmas and all that were good for you. 60s was a strange decade for kids' movies. Derek Meddings was a special effects master for Thunderbirds and even UFO. Yeah, I loved UFO. I still love UFO. Got to meet Ed Bishop once. Nice guy. But yeah, I kind of like that groovy 1970s space age look. Not that keen on those shopping mall futures we got in things like Logan's Run, but in things like Space 1999 and UFO. I love the design and the kind of slick look of things. I wasn't too keen on everybody wearing jumpsuits, but that kind of 70s vibe was something that Jerry Anderson's companies really almost created. Yeah, Derek Meddings was later in the with the Bond films. Lee says, a huge Stuntfest fan in the 90s in the UK. Everyone made their own Tracy Island model. Yeah, that stuff still plays well. If you go into any collectibles fair, chances are there are a couple of hundred different Thunderbirds things there. And it's not just older people who are buying them. The younger people are buying them because they've seen the stuff on DVD and Blu-ray. So there are pop culture goes through interesting waves and then suddenly becomes big again. And Thunderbirds and that kind of media in particular. Captain Scarlet was great too. I love Captain Scarlet. The idea of a guy who can't be killed was fascinating to me. The Eagle spaceships of Space 1999 is so underestimated. Middle-aged kid girl. I used to walk around the house like brains. Did you get in your father's liquor cabinet to do that? Yeah, Crusader Rabbit, Benny and Cecil, they were good. I watched Crusader Rabbit. That was the first TV series I remember watching was Crusader Rabbit. And also the early Hanna-Barbera one, Rough and Ready. Those were the things that were on really early in Australian television. And those were the kind of things I watched. Beanie and Cecil was on sometimes. It wasn't as often as that. But really in the 60s and 70s, the things I was leaning into were things like Shazam, the Herculoids, Mighty Mightor, Captain Caveman, all that kind of stuff was fantastic. The Hanna-Barbera and Johnny Quest, of course, was probably the peak of Hanna-Barbera stuff, and still gets a lot of credit to this day. And of course, it inspired things like the Venture Brothers. Did we have Dr. Snuggles in Australia? I don't remember Dr. Snuggles. I kind of got it rings a vague bell. But no, we had things like Mr. Squiggle. Roadrunner is still very good today. I mean, all of those Warner Brothers cartoons were fantastic. What's Opera Doc, where they did Wagner's Ring Cycle as a 9-minute cartoon. And One Froggy Evening. All of those are classics, and they still hold up incredibly well. And Three Little Bops just still kicks ass. Speed Racer was good, absolutely. Thunderbirds movie directed by Jonathan Frakes was disappointing. He turned it into Spy Kids. Yeah, I think that was the job, though. That was very much the studio's idea to do that. I'm not sure live action Thunderbirds in the 20s or the 1990s would have really thing. One episode of Dr. Snuggle stands out because huge cubes on the ocean are being stolen. Turns out it was written by Douglas Adams. Yeah, Douglas Adams. Oh, I met him too at a signing. He was really nice too. That Thunderbirds film was terrible. That Thunderbirds film, every time I go into an op shop to charity store to go and see what DVDs they've got, chances are 1 in 3 of them will have a DVD of the Thunderbirds movie in it. Middle-aged kid girl says, I have an irrational dislike for Jonathan Frakes. Okay. But yeah, there were all those movies where they were redoing TV series. I saw one in Inverness, the I Spy movie with Owen Wilson. That one was incredibly bad. Real Thunderbirds movie had more rescues in the opening credits than the whole movie. Yeah. Let's see, Dealey. I was watching Jean Marais and Le Bossu a couple of days ago. 1959 French swashbuckler with Marais as a dashing hero dealing with devious aristocrats and helping a wronged maiden in distress. Yeah, he did a few of those ones too. He did a couple of years ago. I watched one of his movies, which was a adventure film. I'm just going to bring it up on my letterbox because I think it's worth checking out. Let me have a look here. And sorry if this is a little bit dull, but let me have a look for this. Just waking up for this. Was it a couple of years ago? What also part? Just looking at this, all the movies that I watched, I want to rewatch now. It's horrible. Let me have a look here. Was it in this year? Yeah. There's an action film with Lisa Lepulver and Jean Marais called. I've only got the but yeah, basically it was set in South America, and Jean Marais kind of adventure hopping around South America. That one is really great. Any old John Marais action film is a little bit interesting. Don't you dare, middle-aged good girl. I'm not going to talk about the Wild Wild West movie. Okay, and says original dislike of Marina Sirtis. Time for the fireworks to start up in Brisbane. Yep. Phantomas movie. Yeah, 3 Phantomas movies. I've got them. Echo. And the Phantomas movies I like. The ones with Jean Marais playing both Phantomas and Fandor, the journalist who's investigating Phantomas. Though they weren't the first Phantomas movies. They date back as far as the silent film era. The Avengers, not the Marvel movie, the TV show just didn't work either. Even though it had Uma Thurman and Ray Fiennes, and they had a pretty good chemistry. Just didn't work. Yeah, Lee, Marina a few years ago to Con, loveliest person ever, absolutely. Louis de Funès. Yeah, Louis de Funès I never got into because I didn't like him a lot. I think his characters were a little too broad for the material sometimes. I know he was a very popular comedian in France and some other countries in Europe, but it just never worked for me. Like the Silent Phantomas movies, as you know, Carbon God. Not seen the ones with Marais. You can get them on Amazon.com. I had to pay a little bit, but I got the 3 Jean Marais ones in there. They're very groovy in the 1960s kind of way. Striving to balance. Yeah, Danger Diabolic. Yeah, I love Danger Diabolic. Imprint put out Danger Diabolic, and I'm really glad I got the Blu-ray of it. I had a previous DVD copy of it. But yeah, Mario Bava's Danger Diabolic with John Philip Law and Marissa Mell is just the grooviest of the groovies. Condor Man from the 80s. Oh, that was bad. That was a Disney movie. That was just so much crap. Welcome to 2023, Queensland. Absolutely. Yeah, much more. I made more than a few people watch Danger Diabolic, and everyone loves it. Yeah, if you like Danger Diabolic, you might try to find the Phantomas movies. They're very much in the same thing. Mrs. Brown was great. Mrs. Brown's Boys, yikes. What about Barbarella? I mentioned Barbarella earlier in the live stream, Echo, as a movie that plays really well if you watch it on New Year's Eve. It's a good movie to watch with your friends on New Year's Eve. Grant, got to go now. Have a great New Year and middle-aged good girl and the cats. See you soon. Absolutely, Grant. Thank you for sticking around. Let's see, strongly balanced. It truly is a grievous wood. Who'd want to be a cop after seeing Diabolic? Well, I wouldn't want to be Inspector Ginkgo. Like Condor Man, but tastes of course different. Yeah, I could never get used to Michael Crawford's really shit American accent. Couldn't get the imprint Danger Diabolic. Had to settle for the bare bones US edition. You still got the movie. You get the edition you can get. It's great if you got the extras. I love getting the extras, and if they're good, I'm very happy with that. But if you can't get the movie, absolutely. Dealey Ozo was great. I'd say that Hirokazu era films made a similar thoughtful vein about people in their relationships with each other. Shoplifters and Afterlife, as well as Our Little Sister. Gonna have to dip into them. It's 1 a.m. Up to tea if he still wants to continue or call it a night. Barbarella introduced me to TNA at 14. Have some DV editions. Diabolic has the Beastie Boys body movement video. There's also a movie called CQ, which is very much inspired by Danger Diabolic, which had John Philip Law in it as well. Roman Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola's son, made it. Love the opening of the treasure from the Silver Lake. Yep. Love Diabolic, but too many people only know the last movie made fun of on MST3K. Absolutely. I think Danger Diabolic's an honest enough film to stand on its own that doesn't need to be mocked. But anyway, I'm going to wind it up here because it's 1 o'clock here, and I think we're either going to go to sleep or have a burger run because we've got 24-hour burger places around here. So we might do. Yes, Driving to Balance, saw CQ in theatre. Lol. Yeah, it's not great, but it's a little bit of fun. Yeah, the soundtrack is really good. I like CQ's style, if not all of its substance. But if people can find CQ, it's an interesting movie if you like. Barbarella and Danger Diabolic is definitely there. Middle-aged good girl says she has gaming to do. Original soundtrack to Diabolic was lost, but there's a great full album cover on Spotify. Yeah, absolutely. Morricone stuff is just next level. Colin, thanks, Terry. I watched Apollo, your recommendations this year. There's going to be more next year, Colin. Well, this year now, sorry, 2023. Got a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of really interesting things I want to do. I'm going to go back and look at some really, really, really old science fiction from the 1920s and 1930s. So I'm going to do that. Anyway, I'm going to wind it up here because I'm losing my ability to speak coherent words, which is not that great. But yeah, Doug, thank you very much. And thank you for supporting the channel as well. Jack, thank you. And Echo, thank you. And Colin, everybody, thank you very much for being a part of this. You make it worthwhile. And I'm going to be keeping the content coming in 2023. A lot of new movies coming out I want to talk about. A lot of old movies I want to talk about. I want to do some deep dives into genre films particularly. And I'm a Carbon God. Darren, thank you very much. Take care, everybody. And I'm going to wind it up there. And I love the support that you've given the channel and the support you've given Sal and I. So thank you again. And I'll catch you guys on the next video.